This 3,000-year-old ancient Egyptian princess has come back to life. She roared a few times and shattered the glass of the whole city. The city was swallowed by yellow sand. People were running everywhere, and that's just her minor skill. The big move is even more horrible. If you meet her, you will instantly become a zombie. Can also make thousands of years ago the warrior instantly resurrected, and obediently bowed down to her. The woman in front of me is the only heir to the Egyptian kingdom, Princess Amenet of Egypt. Just as she was about to inherit the throne, her father had an affair with a lady-in-waiting and gave birth to a baby boy. At the time, the royal son was the first heir to the throne of Egypt. Her throne was taken away from her in an instant. She was resentful, desperate to get everything that belonged to her. At the altar she summoned Seth, the god of death, and made a deal with him. Death gave her powerful magical powers. She in turn helped Death return to Earth. When Death gave her the ruby dagger, it was accompanied by the screams of the ravens. Amenet was soon enveloped in a series of eerie runes. A mysterious contract mark was placed on her body. From now on she is no longer the princess of Egypt, but the servant of Death. And to find the chosen one for the resurrection of the god of Death, she would do anything for the throne that belonged to her. That night she executed the king, and the prince with the dagger given by Death. Then she came to the man chosen by Death. She was about to stab him to death and offer him to death for resurrection. Suddenly, the king's guards rushed in and stopped her. She had sinned so much. The guards mummified her alive in a coffin, and buried her coffin deep underground in a mysterious place unknown to the people. And the ruby on the dagger was taken by the crusader leader of the time to his own tomb. A tunnel project now under excavation accidentally unearthed the crusader's burial site. When word got out, a mysterious man suddenly appeared here. He took over all the follow-up work of the burial site. Seems to have found the long-awaited mysterious relics. On the other hand, Nick is holding a map of the tomb, and his teammate Fel is ready to dig the tomb to find the treasure. Both of them are scouts of the US Army. They are both scouts in the US Army, and are on a mission to find the tomb in this village. Just after sneaking into the village, they were discovered by the enemy. Unexpectedly surrounded by the enemy on the roof of the house. He was about to get his lunch. In the nick of time, Phil called the troops to rescue and carry out airstrikes. Military planes came and bombed the enemy with a heavy bombardment, and they were all blown away. 2 people survived. The next second the building where the explosion fell instantly appeared a deep crater. Nick saw the head of the giant in the crater. He was both shocked and excited. Because the movement is too big, the officer also attracted. The officer saw right through what they were trying to do. At that moment a beautiful woman arrived, came up and gave Nick a slap. It turns out that T2 is the archaeologist Jenny. Just 3 days ago Nick took the opportunity to steal Jenny's map of the tomb. Jenny had just arrived. At first glance, she recognized the giant human face in the pit. This was the Egyptian tomb she had been looking for. They soon arrived at the deep tomb. Jenny was there for the archaeology, and Nick and Fel were looking for treasure. The trio entered the cave and found water dripping from the roof. A closer look revealed that it was mercury. The mercury converged regularly to a hole into the pool of mercury. Jenny found this tomb is very evil, seems to be suppressing something evil, and Nick and the others only want to follow something valuable. At that moment, the officer outside told them the sandstorm was coming soon. Tell them to hurry up. Nick was so anxious that he broke a chain with one shot. A huge coffin was pulled out of the mercury by the chain. However, the reappearance of the coffin caused the appearance of many strange insects. The insects pounced on the 3 of them in an overwhelming manner. Fel was bitten by the insects. On the other hand, Nick was attracted by the eyes of the coffin into a vision, but in the realm she saw an ancient Egyptian beauty coming towards her. Just as she was about to kiss her on the mouth, Jenny suddenly woke him up. Nick looked confused. Then the military machine to lift the coffin out of the tomb. At that moment a cloud of crows hovered in the sky. An ominous sign was coming. They rushed the coffin to the plane just as the sandstorm approached. The plane is in transit. Fel, who was bitten by a bug, lay in a chair and rolled his eyes obsessively, and Nick once again entered a vision. In the vision, the ancient Egyptian Princess Amenet was stabbing at him with a dagger. Nick woke up instantly. Fel was cutting the coffin straps. The officer came up to stop Fel, but Fel stabbed him to death. Nick, Jenny, and other people saw this scared out of their wits. Nick rushed forward to stop, but Phil was like a puppet who had lost his mind. He kept stabbing him with a knife. Nick had no choice but to shoot Phil to death. The loss of comrades Nick has not yet shaken from the pain. Suddenly the plane seemed to hit something. They quickly went to the cockpit. They went to the cockpit and saw a black cloud of crows in front of the plane coming towards it. They broke through the plane's glass and killed the pilot. Then the runaway plane began to fly to the ground. At the moment of crisis, Nick grabbed the parachute and put it on Jenny, pushed Jenny out. He fell to the ground with the plane. The next second, Nick suddenly sat up. The dead Fel was standing beside him looking straight at him. Nick was terrified and thought that Fel had come back to life. Fel told him, "You were cursed." Nick found it hard to believe. That's when Jenny and the others came rushing in. On the other side, 2 officers were searching for survivors of the plane crash. One of the officers tried to get a closer look at the mummy. He was sucked into a zombie by a manet. The other officer was also sucked clean. A manet was successfully resurrected into a flesh and blood human being. At this time Nick is listening to the bar. Jenny told the history of the ancient Egyptian princess Amanet, and the ghost of Fel reappeared in front of him. Nick quickly takes Fel to the bathroom. Fel said they were both cursed by Amanet, and Nick, as the chosen one, not to mention the escape of death is not so easy. A shocked and confused Nick wanted to calm down, so he went to the back of the bar in the box, only to see a female zombie led by rats rush to his body. He was so scared that his hands were unstoppable. At the moment of crisis, Jenny slapped Nick back to reality. It turns out that Nick unknowingly entered the illusion again, standing in the middle of the road almost hit by a car. The illusion made Nick completely panic. He thought it was caused by the evil spirits possessed. In order to find out the truth, so he took Jenny to the crash site. While Jenny was looking for the coffin, Amanet again used illusions to bring Nick into the nearby monastery. Several zombies swarmed around him and grabbed him. Amanet rode on Nick and felt around Nick's body and examined him carefully. Then she took out the dagger in the statue and prepared to stab the god of the dead, but she suddenly stopped again, found that the ruby on the dagger was missing. At that moment Jenny came into the church and saw this scene with a surprised face. Amanet saw Jenny and jumped at her, and Nick took the opportunity to kill the zombie on the side, hastily took the dagger and blew it up to Amanet, who was attacking Jenny. After the two took the opportunity to drive an ambulance frantically escape, Jenny looked at the dagger. At a glance, she recognized that it was a ritual object written in an ancient book. The two of them were talking while running for their lives. Just after they finished talking, the car strangely returned to the starting point, and Amanet was waiting for them here. The two men saw the situation and turned around in a hurry, and the zombies awakened by Amanet did not stay idle. Along the way they attacked them fiercely. Nick fought and drove at the same time. One accidentally overturned the car. Nick was enraged. He stood up and grabbed a wooden stick. He went towards Amanet in a fury. However, he was knocked back by a punch. Just as Amanet was about to smoke Jenny, a group of soldiers arrived. They fired some iron hooks and subdued her at once. In the face of such an attack she yielded. The next moment, Nick was taken to a mysterious office. The mysterious man Henry met him. He was the one who sent the soldiers to save them. He is also the boss behind Jenny's operation. Meanwhile, Amanet had been locked up securely. The mercury in the tube was being poured into her body. This can control her power in order to use her as a test subject. At this point Nick looks at her and feels some pain in his heart. Henry told him that you were cursed. Chosen by death is a fact that cannot be undone. Advised him to accept his fate and not to try to resist. Let the Grim Reaper set enter his body. Then they would use Nick's body for research. Nick thought to himself, I've been able to get rid of Amanet, and this guy is going to use it for research. In Henry's office, Nick looked at the skeleton in the glass case. He thought he might end up like this sooner or later. So he grabbed Henry's syringe. Henry's face changed instantly. The bodyguard saw this and ran out with Jenny in a panic. And Nick and Henry fought in a ball. Henry had been possessed by the devil and was extremely powerful. Gently threw Nick out. No matter how Nick attacked him, Henry did not seem to feel the pain. Meanwhile, Amanet sensed the rubber's hiding place. Manipulated a small spider to crawl into the ear of a staff member. The manipulated staff member used an axe to destroy the mercury-infused store manager. The water injection device was then disabled. Amanet frantically spits out mercury. Manners gradually restored. Nick, who had been beaten up, found an opportunity to escape. Jenny came to tell Nick the ruby was back in the light of day. As soon as the ruby is smashed, Amanet will not be able to revive the god of death, said. The two of them are ready to go to the tomb and smash the ruby. Amanet saw Nick rushing out, thinking he was coming to her rescue. But he let Jenny take him away. She was furious that her man had been taken away by another woman. She used her evil power to break free from the chains. Then a roar shattered the glass of the city. The sand swallowed up the whole city in a mess. People fled frantically, and Nick and Jenny were soon blown apart. In the midst of the panic, Fel appeared out of nowhere again. He told Nick that he could lead him to the ruby, and then came the burial tunnel. At the same time, Nick fell under the illusion of Amanet. When Nick came to his senses, hurried to save Jenny, who was almost killed by the zombies. At this point, Amanet summoned out of the Millennium Crusaders to get the ruby. The zombies were bowing down the stage, and the other side of Nick is fighting with zombies in the water. It was hard to escape from death with Jenny, but the next second Amaru suddenly appeared behind Jenny and dragged her into the water. The woman he loved was drowned alive. Nick was devastated, and Amanet saw her chosen man grieving for another woman. A hand threw Nick out. Nick quickly got up and fought back, but he was beaten up again because of the disparity in strength. Nick grabbed an iron bar and prepared to fight to the end. Amanet grabbed Nick and threw him hard. However, Nick silently grabbed the dagger. Nick grabbed the dagger and slammed it into the ground. The ruby cracked instantly. Panicked, Amanet rushed to stop Nick's next move. He said that if the ruby was broken, he would not become a god of death. Jenny would not come back to life either. Nick looked at his beloved one lying in the water, ruthlessly thrust the dagger into his chest. After the death possession, Nick's eyes gradually turned into double pupils. As Nick still controlled his own consciousness, supernatural powers exploded instantly. Amanat thought that the god of death had taken control of Nick's body, rushed forward to contribute themselves. But Nick grabbed Amanat and threw her out and beat her up. Then he pressed her on the stage and drained her blood. Amanat instantly became a dry corpse. Finally, Nick resurrected Jenny with the power of death. Already turned into the Grim Reaper, Nick was afraid of hurting Jenny and chose to leave, and revived his old comrade Phil. The two went to the Egyptian pyramids together to find a way to break the curse, and once again, the body of Amanat was put into a coffin filled with mercury permanently sealed underground.